This is an audiovisual record for the future. If you are watching this, society has crumbled, we've abandoned Earth, and are now living in a distant galaxy, hopefully in peace and harmony. We leave behind the most important relic of our time on this planet, a low-budget, post-apocalyptic science fiction program created by Mississippi Public Broadcasting, designed to teach children the Dewey Decimal System. This report was completed in 2020, in what feels like the final year on Earth, and placed onto YouTube, the closest thing we have to a library at this present juncture. My name is Corey, the keeper of the tapes, and I submit for posterity a television show almost entirely lost to time. I give you 1986's Tomes and Talismans. Tomes and Talismans may be the Rosetta Stone of my personal aesthetic. It has the low-rent visual style and earnest delivery of 70s and 80s British sci-fi, an eerie synth score, and a mournful post-apocalyptic tone. It's one of those rare triumphs of bizarre public broadcasting children's programming where the need to create a teaching tool collided with an earnest and obvious want to create a Mad Max, Doctor Who, and high fantasy-inspired science fiction epic. It's the public television equivalent of an airbrushed van painting, and I'm here for it. I first saw Tomes and Talismans on a gray, rainy 4th grade morning. Our class was in our extremely 70s library at our elementary school. You know the kind. Low ceilings, moist carpet, the musty smell of old paperbacks, and the faint memory of scholastic book fairs past. We were here to learn the ins and outs of the Dewey Decimal System, and somehow this was presented to make it interesting for us. The vague, hazy memory of this dreamy piece of sci-fi nostalgia has haunted me ever since. It's the thing with a lot of grade school memories, though, isn't it? You don't necessarily remember the events, you just get flashes, feelings, the broadest sketches of moments. The further it embedded itself into my brain, the less tangible it became. All I was left with was this feeling of mournfulness around the Dewey Decimal System, if that makes sense. That is, until one fateful YouTube rabbit hole led me to Mississippi Public Broadcasting's channel. There, they had posted in full smeary 80s standard definition glory the first episode of Tomes and Talismans, and when the music hit, it all came flooding back to me in a rush like I was Anton Ego at the end of Ratatouille. But that was all. They only had the one episode. I checked everywhere. I scoured every corner of the internet for any sign of the rest of the show, some low-quality rip, some 9th generation repost of a repost of a repost, but to no avail. I'm assuming the curious lack of the rest of the show is a royalties issue that prevents a full digital release, as a lot of these public broadcasting programs used cheaper, more limited contracts that were written pre-internet and would need to be renegotiated. After an exhaustive search, I found myself in a strange situation. A comment on a message board somewhere pointed me to an email address. I felt weird about it. It's the internet. Why am I sending unsolicited emails to a person I don't know in the year of our Lord 2020? But I sent a message asking about Tomes and Talismans, and 2 months later I received a response. It was kind, simple, and only asked me for my mailing address, which I gave, because my desire to see Tomes and Talismans was slightly higher than my desire to maintain my personal safety. But a couple of months later, much to my surprise, a bubble mailer with a single unmarked DVD arrived, and there it was. I popped it into the player and was immediately transported back to that musty library in 1998. For the uninitiated, Tomes and Talismans was an educational television show produced by Mississippi Public Broadcasting in 1986. It was designed to teach library science to kids, but with a sci-fi flair. It tells the story of the last days of humanity on Earth. It's the year 2116, and with the world overpolluted and overrun by communications-destroying aliens known as Wipers, humans have decided to abandon the planet to live in the White Crystal Solar System, whatever that is. We enter this story on the last day to evacuate the planet. A dedicated team of librarians and researchers are preparing an underground library of the world's knowledge, and are making a final check to ensure completion. Miss Bookhart, our main librarian, notices a book is missing, so she must venture out in her bookmobile into the rapidly deteriorating surface world in order to find it. In the midst of all this, we get a genuinely disturbing scene of Wipers taking over a TV station in order to show us their danger. It's still pretty distressing, Anytime a live broadcast is co-opted, it's really scary to me for some reason. Back at the bookmobile, Miss Bookhart has neither the book nor the ability to get to the evacuation site in time. A strange universal being made of energy and riddles who I guess has a passion for research and library science. Anyway, he casts a sleeping spell on her and she falls into stasis. Her very incompetent team abandons her. Seriously, these guys are just useless. They don't understand the basics of their job on the last day, but I guess they have decent enough romantic chemistry, so it's all good. Miss Bookhart was really doing the heavy lifting around the library. Miss Bookhart is left as the last human on an Earth overrun by wipers. The tone of this show is wildly dark, huh? It seems to take every opportunity to revel in the decay and sadness of the abandoned Earth. Most kids shows I watch for this channel have this kind of easy breezy, madcap manic quality to them, but not Tomes and Talismans. This is PBS, we're working with government money. We don't have to please any sponsors or advertisers. You're getting the apocalypse and you're gonna like it, 8-year-olds of America. We're Tomes and Talismans and we're here to make you think about death and get sad and stuff. For instance, the music. Who let this show have this sad of a score? This is a show for kids! It sets the tone of an already depressing show and wraps it in a bow of dreamy, mournful synthesizers. That aggressive scratch at the beginning that wakes up any kid who's fallen asleep in class, the sweeping minor key, it's all just sad and unforgettable. Sure, there's basically only one refrain that they stretch out across the entire 13-episode run, with the exception of a very out-of-place song about encyclopedias in episode 6.
Africa or Antwerp or Alaska or Aberdeen, Zaire or Zurich or anywhere in between. You can find out about places in the encyclopedia. Aristotle or Mark Antony or Hank Aaron the baseball pro, Zola the French writer. Anyone else you need to know? You can find out about people in the encyclopedia.
It's just so wildly out of tone. But the overall sonic landscape of the show is eerie synthesizers or even eerier silence. Maybe they didn't have that big of a music budget, but most of the learning portions of the series take place over nothing. And the dialogue has a lot of error in it, so it creates the perfect recipe for sleepy kids. Dark room, slow conversations, and library science. But the actual plot of this thing is kinda compelling. Tomes and Talismans is not a good show, but it may be good art. It spends a lot of its time pulling against the reins of its form, trying to tell its own little slice of intriguing post-apocalyptic sci-fi in the margins of an otherwise dry lesson plan about proper library usage. But it's hard to teach library science when you're the last human on Earth, so cut to 100 years later. Here's where we meet the Users, a race of Roddenberry-esque space weenies who have no weapons, communicate telepathically through thin plastic headbands, and have their complete world knowledge stored in computers. Millennials, am I right? We focus on the children who all have just the silliest names, like Abacus, Aphos, Varian, LiDAR, Pixel, and Reset. Just full-on sci-fi trash, and I love it. I love every last bit of it. I love their 90s tracksuit aesthetic, I love their Doctor Who ripoff bass, I love their overly formal way of speaking to each other. It's a pitch-perfect rendition of a race of alien nerds. The User children come across an odd device called, wait for it, a book. Inside of this book is information about wipers. It also happens to be the same book Miss Bookhart was looking for 100 years ago. Through a series of coincidences, they manage to logic chain their way to the bookmobile, find Miss Bookhart, and have an encounter with the universal being who delivers them one of his famous cryptic riddles that'll help them defeat the wipers. They manage to wake up Miss Bookhart, who does a surprisingly good job of not having a complete and total meltdown when she realizes everyone she knows and loves is dead.
Have I really been asleep for 100 years? What year is this?
Information left by the Earthlings indicates that it is near the year you would call 2223.
Then it has been 100 years. How do you know my language?
And she helps the children escape the wipers and find the long-since-forgotten underground library, which is looking real bad. They say an earthquake hit it. You didn't secure the final vault of human knowledge to be preserved for future archaeologists a bit better? Didn't even try to earthquake-proof this bad boy? Technological advancement really fell off in the late 2070s or something, huh? Put all of our focus into beaming technology and space terraforming. Which, now that you say it, actually makes sense. Never mind, carry on. Anyway, they clean up the library, and Miss Bookhart does what any librarian in this situation would do. She geeks out about the minutiae of copyright information for an inordinately long amount of time. Abacus and Aphos' father, Colonel Holan, sets out to look for the children, and then the plot can begin. What follows is convolutedly simple. The Wipers discover the user base, place some kind of convenient magnetic shield around it to try to kill them, and the universal being appears to Holan and provides him with yet more cryptic clues and call numbers. We also get to know more about the Wipers, who are pursuing Colonel Holan. They're essentially space rednecks. They live in squalor, though they seem to have access to, technology and food and all that. They despise the users. Space nerds versus space jocks, go! And they're deeply superstitious and scared of horses of all things. The children in the library must learn how to use the card catalog, the Dewey Decimal System, encyclopedias, and various outdated research techniques in order to decipher the universal being's overly complicated series of instructions on how to defeat the Wipers and save the library. They also have to help guide Colonel Holan to the library, where they meet up, and then Abacus goes on a reconnaissance mission to retrieve the final book from the user base. In the meantime, Holan and Bookhart just start mercilessly flirting. Bookhart is DTF. BUTDDS, which of course stands for Down to Find Books using the Dewey Decimal System. In a grand final confrontation, Miss Bookhart and the users use their well-researched knowledge to set up an elaborate hologrammatic projection of a guy on a horse in a cloud, which spooks the Wipers so badly that they accidentally let the magnetic shield fall, and somehow that disintegrates them all. The universal being then gives them a book report of their journey with a bibliography. For real, seriously. This being loves books. The users are free, the Wipers are gone, and the library is saved. Yay books! Yay knowledge! The end. So you see, the plot itself is basic and fun in an approachable kid show kind of way, and there's a lot to love about it. But as a delivery device for library science, it's bland and didactic. It has a similar problem to a lot of the Christian children's shows I watch for the channel. The character work and plot is all entertaining, but when it gets time to get down to the actual business of teaching these kids, the entire story grinds to a calamitous halt. When Tomes and Talismans is in teaching mode, it feels condescending. The integration of learning and entertainment is challenging at best and impossible at worst. Sesame Street does it fairly well because it's mostly putting the Muppets in real-world situations and then having them react as children do, or just throwing colorful, funky interstitial segments that are more about exposure to concepts like numbers or letters. Bill Nye the Science Guy worked so well because he took the opinion that science was cool, and then he proceeded to deliver his lessons in such a way that backed that opinion up. Because of the way the show is framed, though, Tomes and Talismans has to struggle against itself to get its message across. The users know nothing about libraries or books, so Miss Bookhart has to tell them what to do almost every time. The discovery and learning isn't organic. Each library science teaching segment is essentially a filmed lecture where everybody wears sci-fi jumpsuits.
Oh no, it's all smudged. It's impossible to read.
Call number?
We need the call number to find this book, A Recreational Guide to the Singing River Valley.
The book is not in alphabetical order by the author's name on the shelf.
Oh no, nonfiction books are shelved according to a number system, the Dewey Decimal System.
Then the call numbers on these cards tell you where to find the books.
That's exactly what they are for.
How will we be able to help Father? We can't read this call number. We can't find the book we need.
Now we know the title and author of the book. We'll try the title card or the author card.
The what cards?
By denying the characters the ability to make the discovery of process on their own, any part of the mystery they solve is cheapened. The children only need to be in the show to revive Miss Bookhart, to get the father to the library to configure the laser, and to be small enough to fit through the sewer in order to retrieve the book. Literally everything else could have been done faster and more efficiently by Miss Bookhart on her own. Not to get all cinema sins on this, I'm not trying to nitpick the logic per se, just the way that the story is constructed. Information is conveyed better in context of a story. Show, don't tell, it's one of the fundamentals of screenwriting. I also have issues with the Wipers. They're ambiguous and their goals are unclear. They work acceptably as an ever-present menace, but other than their general avarice and desire to destroy communication systems, they're not really compelling as a threat. They have that kid show problem where they're a bit too scary to be appropriate, but also a bit too bumbling to be scary, and the show juggles that energy really oddly. It feels like the work of an upper-middle-class writer who really wanted to get the hell out of deeply poor conservative Mississippi. The portrayal of the Wipers swings wildly between political and class anger. The users are all thin, gleaming, logical, clean, and shinier than an Apple store in a suburban mall, while the Wipers are all pudgy, greasy, dirty, and deeply superstitious idiots who live in piles of filth and tchotchkes while ruining the planet. Tell us how you really feel, Denise Matthews. I think this problem really stems from a lack of ideology on both sides of the characters, though. Each alien race has a nebulous goal. The users research and collect data, the Wipers destroy communication. Neither really gets a chance to explain why. That being said, I'm still in awe of the ambition of Tomes and Talismans. There are so few science fiction properties for kids, and that bums me out. As a dweeby little Trekkie in the late 90s, the presence of a sci-fi show directed squarely at me made me feel appreciated. Maybe that made up for how poorly the information was delivered, because I definitely absorbed the lessons, and the aesthetic. This show does so much with so little. We know someone with a horse? I guess we're gonna make the horse important. Gotta get our no money's worth out of that horse. Bunch of abandoned buildings in rural Mississippi? Perfect place to film scenes from a blighted Earth. Can we repurpose Mississippi Public Broadcasting's news desk into a futuristic broadcast center? You're damn right we can. All of these little cost and value decisions lead to a show that looks expensive for something that's obviously as cheap as it is. And this kind of shot-on-video on a shoestring sci-fi show would go on to inform my true sci-fi loves as I became a teen. Red Dwarf, which then fostered a love for Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Doctor Who. PBS, the gateway drug for BBC. At the end of the day, that's why I still love Tomes and Talismans, despite the fact that I spend about half of its running time looking at my phone. In its best moments, it's a show made with a lot of love, passion, earnestness, and conviction. It believes in its library science mission, and it also believes in the power of science fiction to reach and engage young minds. And in that way, it gives you permission to be a dweeb. I needed that as a kid. So, how do you watch this fun, wacky, fascinating little show? You kinda can't. For some reason, only the first episode is legally available to the public. You can always do what I did and find the guy who will send you the unlabeled DVD, which, I think there are old rips of some since-deleted YouTube channel, but it's better than nothing. I won't make the DVD guy's name public, but he's not that hard to find if you know what you're looking for. But I suggest a better method, one that helps all of us. Just because Tomes and Talismans is a relic, that doesn't mean it deserves to be forgotten. Email Mississippi Public Broadcasting, tweet at them, tell them you want Tomes and Talismans on DVD, VHS, or streaming, or just upload it to YouTube. If you reach out on social media, use the hashtag Tomes and Talismans. I've added the links in the description to get in contact with them. If this is the only thing my YouTube channel ever accomplishes, I'd be a happy guy. The next time you embark on a creative endeavor, think about Tomes and Talismans for a minute. If that show can get made, your great idea can happen. Maybe one day your idea will also permanently traumatize young kids in a library. And at the end of the day, isn't that all anybody could ask for? Thank you for watching Too Many Tapes. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notifications about new episodes. Do you remember Tomes and Talismans? Leave a comment about where you first encountered it and what part of the country you're from. I'd love to see how widespread this strange little show was, or if it was just cordoned off in the South somewhere. If you'd like to support Too Many Tapes, you can donate to my Patreon with the link in the description. If you donate $20 or more a month, like Chase Smith, I just kind of sit in my house thinking about how wild of a thing that is to do. And I appreciate you every day and place your name in the credits in an uncomfortably large font. If you donate $10 or more a month, you're a hologram of a man on a horse. I project you into the clouds in a font that is large, but not quite as large as the $20 a month font. If you donate $5 or more a month, you're the users. And I want to know the secrets of your special telepathic headbands which allow you early access to my content. Get out of my head! Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time on Too Many Tapes. If you'd like to support Too Many Tapes, you can donate to my Patreon. You can donate. It's a new service where I will send biscuits to your house.